Hey there, this is Kyle from MinnMax. I was not on the MinnMax Show this week where we shared our personal top 10 lists, and because of that, I wanted to take this time to share it directly here with you on our YouTube channel. So here we go. This is my top 10 video games of the year 2020. My number 10 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I have a lot of nostalgia for Tony Hawk, but my Tony Hawk starting line is kind of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I played 1 and a little bit of 2, but as a result of that, going back to those games was both nostalgic because I got to play a lot of Tony Hawk, but for me, a lot of it felt brand new, which was fantastic. It felt like a brand new Tony Hawk game, which was awesome. My number 9 is MinnMax's Game of the Year, the Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you listen to our discussion, putting together the MinnMax top 10 list, you'll know I had some issues with that game, almost exclusively related to the ending. The ending frustrated me in a lot of ways, but the ending was not the full experience for that game. And leading up to it, I had a really great time, and the game looks fantastic. It's probably my favorite Final Fantasy combat ever, period. And the music was awesome. It's a good game. It's a great game. Number 8, Immortals Fenyx Rising. It's a game that just really I couldn't put down. It was my podcast game. It was one that I just loved, sort of running around the world and finding things. There was always something to do. The act of leaping from a high height, just flying off into the distance, always felt great. I had a good time with it. It's one that I may even return to, having beaten it. Number 7, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. The most negative thing I can say about that game is that it doesn't feel like a huge evolution from the first game, but the first game was also fantastic, and it's just this really moving story. It's honestly the first game that I played that I saw the advantage of 4K. The colors in that game are just absolutely stunning, and it's another one that I wasn't playing anything else at the time. Like, everything else just fell by the wayside because I had to play and finish that game. Number 6 is personally my biggest surprise, and it's Cyberpunk 2077. There is a lot about that game to point to, to complain about, especially the way it was released. Hiding the console version of the game before release was bad. All the bugs are bad. I've been lucky I haven't encountered too many of those, but I mean, I've had to reset. I've seen crazy things happen. It's frustrating. The overt sexualization of nearly every square inch of Night City feels like a teenager trying to be edgy, and it's bad, but there are so many moments that are just awesome. Like when you're hacking dreams to solve kidnapping cases with an emotionally invested, disgraced detective. You're going scuba diving with romantic interests. There's all these moments where I hack a big group of bad guys so well that I just never even had to raise a gun, and just driving around the city and just taking it all in. It's just awesome. I really couldn't put it down, which surprised me because leading up to its release, it was not a game I thought I would like. I wasn't even sure if I was going to play it. Mostly, I even started it just because it's the biggest game of the year. It was this big news story. I was just like, I need to check this out. I need to see what it's about. But I loved it. I played it. I finished it last night, and I'm going to go play more. I really enjoyed it, just mostly for the atmosphere and the look of that world and the sort of the options for the player and the side stories. All the side stories are really fascinating. It's great. It's a great game. Number 5 is The Pathless from Giant Squid. I was very excited for their last game, Abzu, but it ultimately didn't really resonate with me. I kind of found it dull, even though it was beautiful. And The Pathless kind of found this perfect middle ground for me between sort of the beauty and movement of Journey while adding this element of, more, I guess you'd say gameplay. Like the act of shooting arrows to like maintain speed and stuff just feels so good. And the moments where you're chasing these massive fiery bosses through like a forest that's on fire are just awesome. I really love that game. The Pathless, maybe I don't know if you would consider it underrated, but it's one that I would like a lot more people to play for sure. Number 4 is Astro's Playroom, the pre-installed game on the PlayStation 5. I love the Astro Rescue Mission VR game. This feels like a sequel to that. I wish it were longer. It's just so much fun to play. It's just a really amazing platformer. It feels like Sony has this team that is making stuff that rivals Mario, Nintendo's platformers, and I love it. And it's crazy that it was just a free game that was included on the console. It was amazing. Number 3 is Half-Life Alyx. I mean, it's a sequel to Half-Life. It's ostensibly Half-Life 3. I mean, it really is. They didn't want to call it that, I'm sure, because there's, a lot of weight behind that name. But a lot has been said about, interacting with the world and being in VR. But, like, the thing that stuck out to me, the thing that I loved the most about it was just the opportunity to, be back in that world of Half-Life and just get more of that story. And the dialogue is fantastic. The writing is fantastic. And then, I mean, you can find a piano and play with your fingers, which is insane. Number 2 is The Last of Us Part 2. It's my second favorite game of the year. I always have a similar thing to say about Naughty Dog games, and that, like, the gameplay is good. I like the gameplay, but I mean, their storytelling and performance capture specifically, the way the performances they get out of actors and the way they capture them is just stunning. And the sort of, I guess you could say, dichotomy of that story, the way it presents multiple sides of a conflict, are just amazing. I don't see that a lot in media, and I love that they took this huge swing with it, and it really worked for me. I recognize that for some people it didn't click. They were upset by elements of the story. I couldn't have been happier with where that game went, and I never knew it was going to happen next, which is a rare thing. And my favorite game of the year is Ghost of Tsushima. It's funny, Sucker Punch has had a bunch of hits. Sly Cooper is beloved, Infamous is well liked, all those games sold well, but in a weird way, I think that studio is still underrated, even though they've had a number of hits. And Ghost of Tsushima is just another example of, like, look at what these guys are doing. They're doing incredible work. I mean, just the visuals of the world are fantastic. Controlling Jin feels amazing. I loved changing stances. It kept combat interesting throughout the whole game, which is a big game. The loading times alone are worth, commending, just because they're incredible, and they did it on PlayStation 4. And it's a game that I couldn't stop playing. I lost so much sleep in a good way over that game because I wanted to keep going. I did everything you could possibly do. I love how they figured out a way to let you explore and move through the world without having to rely on a minimap on screen. Even when I have the option to remove the minimap, I still usually keep it on because I can't let go of that safety net of knowing where I am and where to go. But Ghost of Tsushima was the first time that, like, I was able to move through a world and just fully focus on the environment, which is rare. But yeah, fantastic game. So there you go. That's my list. Maybe some surprises on there. Maybe you know me well enough that it's all familiar and it makes sense to you. But hey, thanks for watching, and of course, thanks for supporting MinnMax. As always, it's always appreciated.
Do you want to get your name or Twitch or YouTube channel in the description of everything we release? Record a podcast with us, put a picture of your choice on MinnMax's TV, or a whole lot more? You can check out the benefits for supporting us on Patreon. If you support MinnMax at any tier on Patreon, you can submit questions or comments for us to read on the air, and you'll also get access to the wonderful MinnMax Discord. We need your help to keep this whole indie trainer rolling, so we'd appreciate it if you checked us out.